together with American songwriter, we had the absolute privilege of talking to James JY Young of STYX.
Adam was able to talk to JY of STYX over the phone. JY told us all about growing up in Chicago, the early days of playing music with his brother, going to college for aerospace engineering, and forming STYX. It certainly brought my dad and his cousin back when they booked STYX when they first were starting out.
It was truly an honor to talk to JY. He was great. Make sure to check our YouTube channel out and Facebook page at Bringing It Backwards, and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Bringing Back Pod.
We'd appreciate your support if you follow and subscribe to our podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts.
We're Bringing It Backwards with James JY Young of STYX. Hey, what's going on?
Well, there's a global plague going on. I don't know if you've heard about that.
I was wondering why nobody was out and about.
So I'm eating my Wheaties and taking my vitamin D3 and hiding from the world. Yes, indeed.
Well, I appreciate you, doing this with us. It's an honor to have you on.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
Yeah, so our podcast is about your journey in music. Really, I wanted to just know about how you got into it and just the formation of STYX.
Yeah, well, starting with me, everyone in my family, my dad comes from a musical family, and his sister, who was a church organist, could sight read like crazy, and she married a jeweler who was a violinist, and they did all kinds of wonderful different things with string quartets and whatever. But my dad, he was a younger child, and putting music in front of him, he really was a phenomenal by-ear piano player. You could play him, he could hear something, and he could sit down and bash it out. Might have to rehearse it a little bit, but he could pretty much hear a melody and put chords together with it in a very amazing way. And my brothers and sisters, all of us, were started on piano at age 5.
Oh, wow.
And my eldest sister, there's two girls born in 40 and 42, and then I was born in 49, and I had two brothers born 51, 53. And so my eldest sister, she was the one who really was the best pianist of us all, and second sister really didn't do as much on there, and I probably was second most accomplished pianist, being the oldest. It was 2 girls followed by 7 years, and then 3 boys every second year. And but ultimately, I became enamored with rock and roll music. Somewhat, some ways, partly because of my older sisters, but also just because of it was what was happening at that point in time, and music was starting to be geared at a younger vibe, and we did have a record player there that could do 33 and a third or albums or what have you. So, I mean, I heard a lot of stuff that was like previous standards that would get played on the record player, but also I started buying rock singles early on, and the first LP I ever bought was Bo Diddley the Gunslinger.
Oh, really?
When I was 12 years old. That would have been 63 probably, and my lifetime goal was to meet Bo Diddley before he passed, and unfortunately I was able to do that, and then
you were able to do that? Is that what you said?
I met him. He had a stroke, so there was not really a great conversation. I have a little crummy video of me singing to him, Bo Diddley the Gunslinger.
Oh, that's cool.
And last night, September 3rd, he was inducted. He passed away back about 10 years ago, and 12 years ago. But he's inducted into I think he's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame already, but the state of Mississippi has got their own sort of music Hall of Fame, and I think he was born there. And so he was inducted along with Jerry Lee Lewis and a host of others, old timers, into the Hall of Fame of music. And I was invited to go down there, and had agreed to kind of go and then and be part of that thing. Actually, get up and sing a Bo Diddley song, but I was just afraid of social distancing not being obeyed, and Louisiana is a kind of a state that I think has been lower on the list in terms of its, obeying the rules, at least as some people see them.
Sure.
So and then my better half is she's someone who's susceptible to catching things, and she's got an underlying rare illness that's not a good thing, although it's under control. But the least little thing, she's, whereas I'm big and dumb and blonde and bulletproof pretty much. Rarely get sick. Have never missed a STYX concert because of illness. She had a stroke back in 12 years ago, and she was on a ventilator for a couple of days right after that happened. And so I refused to leave her side for 2 shows. But apart from that, my own health has kept me the only guy that's been on every STYX show from the beginning.
Yeah. Wow.
Except for those two.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, what was the reason behind? What drew you to that first LP?
Okay. Well, I had a band with my younger brother and some guys from my one neighborhood on the south side, which is kind of the Irish Catholic neighborhood, although I'm not Catholic, but a little bit Irish. Mm-hmm. And Dennis DeYoung and the Panazzo brothers. Oh, I had a band that actually the year after Woodstock, they had their first rock festival in Illinois, at a place called Kickapoo Creek, and Irving Azoff, who went on to manage the Eagles and manage all kinds of people and be a record company executive, what have you, was attending the University of Illinois back then, and he and his then partner in a booking agency that they had, and REO Speedway, and I think that was their band going way back at that point, Irving. But there was a rock festival in Illinois in 1970 at a place called Kickapoo Creek, year after Woodstock, and the band I had together with my brother and whatever got a standing ovation playing original music there. But 2 of the guys, those were the days of crazy drug-induced manias on different people, and a couple of the guys in my band. One guy who was actually born in Italy, and his family was kind of on the superstitious side. So there was a guy that was preaching the Jehovah's Witnesses. One of the local musicians on the south side became a Jehovah's Witness and was preaching to everyone that the world was going to end, and if they didn't go there, they would not be among the chosen to go. And so after we played this first rock festival in Illinois, where young ladies were running around topless and getting in the spirit of Woodstock from the year before, this whole thing just kind of freaked them out, freaked out 2 of the guys in the band, and they quit on that. And I was about to get out of college, and my younger brother, who was a bass player in the band, was a long way from being out of college, and my dad wanted us all to get our degrees, so I didn't want to take my brother away from that and try and. So I just decided if I'm going to be a professional musician, I need to find a band that's actually working and playing. And Dennis DeYoung and the Panazzo brothers, or at that point called TW4, and which was a shortening of Trade Winds 4, which they called themselves Trade Winds, but then there was a band out of New York that had a hit song called New York is a Lonely Town, so they figured they had to change it because people would thinking they're going to get that band from New York, book them, and then turn out it's not them. That they didn't want to get involved in that. So I joined this band TW4 with Dennis DeYoung and the Panazzo brothers, who they basically were a cover band. And the band I had with my brother, we did some covers. And Foxy Lady was my trademark. That it would get people going regardless. Yeah. And I had getting an opening feedback note on an F sharp on the G string, which is where Hendrix got it, is virtually, it's a really difficult thing to do, and I'm not sure how they did it. I suspect some trickery, but unfortunately, my degree is in aerospace engineering. Wow. And there was a guy that. Well, back then it was, I only read a couple aerospace courses. It was really like mechanical engineering with a little aerospace thrown in. Because it was the beginnings of all that. Although man had during my college days is when they went to the moon in '69. So long story short, I graduated, and to me, if you're not a professional unless you're getting paid to do what you do.
Sure.
And these guys were working, and so it gave me a chance to go do that, and I had the degree to fall back on. So,
what were you trying to go to school for? Like, you said you went for aerospace engineering, but what did you want to do if you weren't doing music?
Well, my grandfather came from Sweden in right around 1900, and came to the south side of Chicago, where there was a small Swedish thing, and a group of people had the word with Chicago's amenable to their cold winters, so the Swedes could do well there. And he started a carpenter contracting business eventually, and then became a general contracting business. And his sons worked along with him. My dad was one of the three brothers that joined into the family business, and so my fallback position was really to take over the family business. That's how I viewed it.
Oh, okay.
As my parents and my uncles were aging, and but there's no college degree for carpenter contracting or general contracting. So mechanical engineering sounded like it would basically, I would learn everything I would need to know, not having carpentry skills of any sort, and being afraid of banging my knuckles and my fingers and whatever with a sledgehammer or whatever. And I've come close to that a lot of times, so kind of shy away from that these days. But no, I mean, so it was really it was basically because I wanted to quit college. My dad said, "Please, I saved for all my kids." He didn't have the privilege of going to college. He saved for all his kids to go to college, and the 5 children, 3 of us did eventually graduate, and the other 2, the 1, 3, 5, I was number 3. I did graduate, and 2 and 4, and the youngest brother finally graduated from the University of Illinois. My oldest sister graduated from North Park College, which is a smaller sort of religious-based college in the Chicago area. But children 2 and 4, sister and brother, didn't quite get through the college thing, and but my dad wanted me to get a degree, so I got the degree, and figuring that would at least, as the oldest male child, prep me to be involved in the family construction business.
Yeah. Oh, okay, that makes sense.
As a backup. Not that it's anything I really wanted to do, but it was. I'm a practical individual.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were in that TW4 at the time. After college, you were saying.
Yeah.
And from there? What was the next thing that went for you musically?
Well, I had a song called "Best Thing," which I got and started writing previous to joining up with Dennis and the Panazzos and John Cherlewski. Let's not forget him, talented man. Sorry we lost him so early, but so I walked in with the song "Best Thing," and that Dennis sort of helped me change it around a little bit and kind of added a little more melody to it, and then I added a little more psychedelia to it. Not much psychedelia in there, but a little more sort of progressive. Instead of being a 60s pop song from the Shadows of Night, it was the Crying Shames or the Buckinghams or whatever. It was tried to bring it into the 70s. Well, Chicago, I guess, is an example of a band that really succeeded in the 60s out of my hometown. And but so just in that spirit, I don't know. And we had a manager who was really good at getting local gigs and for us and keeping the guys working. And ultimately, he took the demo of that song plus a couple other things and to a local record company that had local success in the 60s and national success in some ways with Nickel Records.
Yeah.
Well, the guys with Nickel Records didn't exist much before we were there, but there's a guy named Bill Trout who was himself a musician, and his claim to fame in Chicago was that top 40 radio was really the only outlet for rock music back in the 60s. Late in the 60s, we started to see some sort of pirate FM things pop up at the end of the dial. There was a couple that I started listening to in college that were, really more keyed into what was going on with the young people at that point in time, the Woodstock generation, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But Bill Trout was very tied into the top 40 radio situation in Chicago. And I guess the song Gloria, which was originally written by Van Morrison, there was one line in there, and I don't know which line it was, that they thought was just a little risque for mainstream radio in the mid-'60s.
Interesting.
So Bill Trout changed that line, put the Shadows of Night into the recording studio, recorded it overnight, pressed the single, walked in with it the next day. Well, he knew the program director. I think it was Clark Weber at that point in time, and Clark Weber said, "Boy, if I guess they tried to get Van Morrison to change the line, and he wouldn't."
Mm-hmm.
And so Bill Trout they changed the line as the radio station said, change the line. It should be changed to something that was more acceptable. I don't remember which line it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then WLS started playing, and it became number one song in the country.
Oh my gosh.
And so that's how Bill Trout kind of got started, and he was involved with the Shadows of Night for a while, and a number of other local bands that went national.
Mm-hmm.
American Breed was another one that Bend Me, Shape Me way back then. And so Bill Trout then started a new record company of his own, and called Wood Nickel, and there was a silent backing from Jerry Weintraub there, and I had RCA distribution, and that's we signed with Wood Nickel and had a recording contract and started putting out records. And
wow.
So that's how we went from playing cover music to writing originals and
wow.
Getting and then Best Thing, which is the song I brought in that Dennis changed a few things around, so it's co-write ultimately between he and I, and we sort of co-sang it, answering background, well, his voice and my voice, plus the three-part harmony signature, which is kind of what we did. It's kind of our trademark. It still is kind of, and that song got on the charts, but not for long, and it was 88 with a bullet the first week, 88 with an anchor the next week, and then gone. But it was I brought it. That song was the genesis of that I brought in to Dennis and the Panazzo. The song "Best Thing" was the genesis of us getting a recording contract, in my not so humble opinion.
Right. Oh my gosh, that's incredible. It's crazy. So my father-in-law is from Chicago. He grew up in the north. He grew up in Mayfair. Which he said it was on the north side of Chicago. But him and his cousin had a booking agency in Chicago, and he was telling me that he used to book you guys like to these high school circuits and stuff back, when you first started. I don't know if you remember they were called Impact Entertainment. His name was Mike, and my father-in-law is Sean.
Well, it's a vaguely.
Okay.
50, how many years later would that be? Let's see, 65. Yeah, 55 years later, vaguely.
Yeah, sure. I know you've probably talked and dealt with a lot of booking agencies back in the day, but yeah, he was telling me that he got and then is your brother in a band, like a cover band? Or he said they were called... My brother
was in a band called Fawn.
Fawn, okay.
Yeah.
So he said he used to book your brother's band quite a bit as well. I thought that was really cool.
Well, they went on and they tried making records and just didn't quite get there.
Mm-hmm.
But
he was just telling me, like, because he told me about Fawn. He said, "Oh, I used to book STYX mainly, in the early days, and then ended up booking your brother's band, Fawn, quite a bit." And I thought that was really cool.
The most fun story I have to tell from a third party's perspective about my brother Rick, who was really he had a really sweeter voice than I did. He could really sing a soft song in a beautiful way. He's actually a much better finger picking acoustic player than I was. A killer bass player.
Mm-hmm.
We went to see Cream a number of times, and Jack Bruce just sort of inspired him, whereas Clapton inspired me along with Hendrix.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw Hendrix play 5 times
Oh my gosh.
while he was alive.
That's so awesome.
And
I can't even imagine that.
but Rick for a while had this group that wasn't quite there yet, and Robin Zander was actually part of a band with was a drummer from the South Side, and my brother and some other people. But my brother Robin didn't have any way to get. Robin lived in Rockford, it's about 90 miles away, so my brother would leave. That's probably why I didn't get through college. he would drive out to Rockford to pick up Robin to bring him down to the South Side of Chicago to rehearse.
Mm-hmm.
And go up there, and then drive him back, and then drive back to school. And that alone is just a hellacious commute. But just about 3 years ago, I ran into Robin somewhere at an LA hotel that a lot of the bands stay at. And he walks right to me and goes, JY, your brother fired me. So that's kind of the kookiest thing that happened, you know. So.
Well, growing up, like, you said you came from like obviously a musical family. Who would you say, when after college, getting into music professionally, who would you say like your biggest advocates were?
Biggest advocates?
Yeah, like helping you, like, kind of telling you can go for it. Like, yeah, you have your degree, but you're obviously very talented in music.
Well, I mean, a standing ovation in front of 10,000 people at the first rock festival in Illinois the year after Woodstock. I've never lacked confidence, and in fact, Dennis DeYoung would say, if you were to interview him, that when he first met me, I was the most arrogant person he had ever met.
So the standing ovation was just another, like, it validified the fact that you should be doing
Well,
this.
it was, for original music, we had an Accolade that goes back to 1967. I was 17, my brother was 16, and we had a singer in the band at that point who also was a great guitarist, a guy named Eddie Provenzano. And the band was called the Catalinas. It was, we were teenagers and we were in high school, and there was we hadn't heard of the Who yet. Hendrix hadn't emerged yet.
Mm-hmm.
Cream hadn't emerged yet. The Yardbirds were there. But honestly, where was I going with all this? There was a battle of bands downtown Chicago,
mm-hmm.
and there was going to be a prize. There was a group of wealthy suburban people that put something together called Talent of America, and they were going to take one rock band with them that it was going to be part of this battle of bands, and the winner had the choice of a free trip to Europe,
wow,
or a cash prize. And those guys they took the cash prize, and then the second place had a little less of a cash prize or a trip to Europe that they would somewhat subsidize, and they took the lesser cash prize, not go to Europe. And our parents, my sister was already kind of running around Europe at that point. She was that much older, mm-hmm. in college and was studying overseas. So my parents said, yeah, well, we'll put up the money. And then the other drummer and bass player and the other guitar player all came up with the money for us to go to Europe. And we wound up playing started at Expo 67 in Montreal, which with my current bandmate Lawrence Gowan, who he didn't even move into Canada. I don't think he moved. I don't know if he was in Canada yet because he was born in Scotland. I guess they moved in. I don't know when they moved from there, but I always tell Lawrence I played Montreal before you did there, Mr. Canada boy. So. and then we got a chance to play in different places. We played some summer resort areas in England. But I got to walk on Carnaby Street in 1967, and when the Beatles were at their peak.
Wow.
And so it was just I had excelled early on, and really was driven to excel, and so I was third place in the Battle of the Bands there. But then we moved on from there, and then. So, confidence, and also this goes to a different aspect of my personality, but someone told me I have a high IQ. I don't know what it was or what it is. So there's one teacher in high school not supposed to tell the kids that. But he says, I don't care about your high IQ, Mr. Young. It's that the other thing you had to do your homework, which I hated homework.
Sure.
And so I didn't feel like I needed to do it. I know this shit already. And but so I double promoted twice in grade school, so I was a year ahead of myself, a year younger than everybody in it.
Oh my
gosh!
Wow!
And
you skipped 2 grades.
Well, this is my story. These are the jeans I was given, and this is the T-shirt I was given. So. Anyway, the jokes probably will get worse from here.
I love them. That's so cool. Wow. Oh man. So, okay, that's cool. I was wondering now, like, what was you talked about seeing Hendrix and walking, around the being in London, the height of the Beatles, or in the UK in the height of the Beatles. What was what was like the best concert you ever saw before you really seeing Styx or starting Styx and all that kind of as a kid?
Well, that's a tough one. It's between the first Jimi Hendrix concert I saw live and between the Who I saw July 4th, 1967 when I was 17 years old, 2 weeks after Monterey Pop, where Hendrix had blown everybody away, and then the Who had destroyed all their gear there. My mother had encouraged me to take some lessons from somebody who was not teaching rock, but teaching some other kind of guitar thing. So I took lessons from a British jazz guy who kind of followed, the British wave and the mop top haircuts for musicians kind of, once the Beatles succeeded, you get your ass kicked on the south side of Chicago before the Beatles. But now, so I was taking lessons from this jazz guitarist who was British. And I learned, God bless him, because I really learned music theory from him, I would say. Mm-hmm. But then I started, I would play some blues line. He says, we're not playing blues here, we're playing jazz. And what the heck? But he would start telling me stories. Mm-hmm. And he told me, well, there's these crazy bastards that they turn their amplifiers up to 10 and they get feedback and they smash their equipment. He said, but you don't want to get involved in that. and I said, no, I guess not. But in my brain, I go, fuck yeah. You don't have to put the F-bomb in there and just say, hell yes.
You can leave the F-bomb. Unless you don't want me to put it in, but we allow all that on our podcast. Well, yeah, it's a podcast.
My parents are both passed away, so nobody's going to roll over their grave for hearing it.
Okay.
So I guess you can leave that in there, and then you can leave my denial in there too. So
okay, I love it. Thank you so much, JY, for calling me and talking to me today. I really, really appreciate it. This has been such.
You had enough stories. I got more.
Let's hear them. I got time. I didn't want to keep you all day.
Well, you've got to ask a question that sort of makes it happen.
Okay. Well then, what was the most memorable moment for you playing with Styx?
There's a ton of them, but let me just think about this here. I guess first time we played a big room in the Auditorium Theater in Chicago. Every time you play a new big venue, we first played the Auditorium Theater in 1974. That was a fantastic thing. And then we first played, we opened for BTO at Chicago Stadium a little bit later after that. Ultimately, we would headline the amphitheater. A lot of these venues don't exist anymore. Never played the what was the there was Coliseum. There's the Teddy Roosevelt was nominated by I can't remember which party he was nominated for, at the Chicago Coliseum, which was like at 11th and Wabash, I think. So that room seemed huge to me when I was a young person, but now it's very small by standards today. Mm-hmm. But I saw a bunch of concerts there. I saw Hendrix play there. I saw Cream play there.
Wow.
So Cream played a number of times back then. But probably the coolest weekend of music was this rock festival in 1969 where I saw Hendrix play twice on a Friday and a Sunday 2 weeks before Woodstock.
Whoa.
And this will be the final story here. But Hendrix, the experience, he was already kind of going past that, but he headlined Friday with Mitch Mitchell on drums and Noel Redding on bass, which was the lineup that succeeded, the power trio that succeeded. But he had already started hanging out with Buddy Miles and a few other people like that, and trying to get more into, Americanize what was going on with him and kind of expand, not be limited to the psychedelic stuff he was kind of really praised for. Mm-hmm. So, hang on a second here. Let's see. Okay, that's somebody. Yeah, I'll have to call back later. But anyway, then Sunday, Hendrix was Sunday came back and jammed with Buddy Miles and what have you. And the Friday night there, the security was very poor at this huge rock festival, which had a number. I saw Jethro Tull the first time there.
Wow.
Saw Three Dog Night for the first time there. Jerry Goodman and the Flock actually played there. So that's the first time I saw Jerry play live. And so finally became somebody that I met. I consider Jerry a friend, although I haven't seen him in a while. Mm-hmm. But so sure, this is the capper story here. And so, needless to say, in Southern California, it's 1969, and actually there was a pandemic going on, the Hong Kong flu, but nobody even knew about it because the news was all focused on the Vietnam War and the protests of the war and civil rights movements. Uh-huh. So Hong Kong flu, nobody seemed to care about it or even know about it. I barely remember it, and I had to read about it to remember it. But there's no social distancing, none of that. So long story short, Friday night, people are starting. We were able to bring some beer there, whatever. And but the security was terrible on the stage. So there's a guy in front of me though, but Hendrix is playing like he's awesome. Mm-hmm. As he always was. There's a guy in front of me. That's God up there, man. That's God up there. That's God up there, is what he said.
That's awesome.
And then about a minute later, the security was bad. So there's a guy that actually got up on the stage, dragging him away, and it was finally distracting Hendrix. So he was a half step off when he grabbed the note.
Oh, okay.
And this guy was, and that's the only time I ever saw it ever happen when he was on stage. But there's the guy in front of me was just, there's God up there, man, there's God up there. And then he turns back to me and goes, God made a mistake, man. God made a mistake. So the title of, if there's ever a posthumous thing on me, has got to be God Made a Mistake.
Yeah, I love
man.
That. That is amazing. Well, JY,
right.
Thank you so much. I real quick, I have one more question. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Well, I believe I've succeeded. I mean, we're talking about not how talented you are, how great a singer you are. The key to surviving is writing your own music and recording your own music. Because if you're covering other people's songs, that doesn't get you very far. And if you're a writer and writing something that I'm not naturally given to sitting down, I'll come up with a guitar riff and do that. Like my colleague Tommy Shaw, Tommy's writing every damn day, and that's my nature is I'm not as dedicated to it nor as motivated, and I have other interests beyond what I do for a living. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you have to have great songs to record, otherwise there's no point in recording them. So focus on songwriting. I mean, if you're the greatest player on the planet, I have so many people whose children have graduated from Berkeley and Boston.
Mm-hmm.
And they go, now what does my son or daughter do?
Sure.
I said, well, they got to go out and you have to find your own pathway of opportunity. And songwriting is one way to get there and stay there, because if you write a song or co-write a song, you get paid for it. And that money, if it can be used in a dozen different ways. I mean, Renegade gets into a movie, huge money. Renegade's played on TV, it's money. And this is the business of music. And as creative as you are, you need to, just to be a great player still doesn't guarantee that you're going to make a great living. So survival is based on finding a way to get paid for what you do. Any artist, no matter what, whether it's music or you're a painter or you're a filmmaker. My best friend in the world teaches a film class and graduate class in film production at DePaul, and he's worked with Bill Murray, worked with Bob De Niro. I got a chance to meet both those guys through him.
Wow.
And they have some movies. Steve Jones is his name. And these new videos that we just put out, I don't know if you've even heard about that, but a couple of songs from back 17 and 20 years ago, Brave New World being one, and These Are the Times.
Yeah.
We put basically took public domain footage and made them into, artistically, my friend Steve and his team made them into great videos, and then they brought the songs alive again. But it's I mean, it's hard to get someone to make a feature film these days and pay any money to do it. There's huge risks involved. There's huge risks involved in being a recording artist. So, I mean, I might say, have a skill that, I mean, get carpentry skills or get accounting skills or get computer skills that you can utilize in a different thing. Focus on your music, but create a little backup plan for yourself. And if you really are serious about it, writing is the way that, that's the biggest payday for anybody. That's talking about the business side purely and not about the artistic side. Some people don't have the ability to do these other things. Fortunately, I've been, I used to write a lot more than I do now, but real life intrudes on rock and roll, and I've got other responsibilities to my wife and to my larger family as the sort of the surviving patriarch. So there's Tommy's a baby of his family, and he's got a woman that really is great for him, and he's really the creative leader of the band, and the rest of us are there to throw in our 2 cents and make great records collaboratively.